30 total marathons. So, and you have 4 kids, have had 4 kids over the last 15 years, if you will. How has your training evolved over the last 15 years? I mean, that can be running, that can be health and fitness in general. How has your training evolved? Because I think one of the things that I aim to do my best at coaching to my clients is that you should not get stuck into just this one definition of success with health and fitness, because your life is going to evolve and there's going to be seasons of your life where you have to change your weekly definition of success based off of the season of life that you're in. So talk to us kind of generally speaking. I know there's probably a lot over the last 15 years, but generally speaking, tell us how your training has evolved over the last 15 years.
Yeah, I'd say I think I've always been a firm believer that you need to have firm set goals, but really flexible plans. And I think being a runner since middle school and running through college competitively and then getting to grad school, it became more of like a hobby and I took up marathon running. Once I added children into the mix, it became really crucial that, again, my success wasn't defined by running X number of miles or so many days per week. It just became what's the volume that is sustainable for that season of life. And that might be really low volume. So early on when I didn't have kids, I could run, a moderate volume of miles per week. And as soon as I had kids, I ran very low volume, like maybe 20 to 30 miles a week, because I was running 2 to 3 days a week and then I'd cross train. And now that my kids, I can like leave the house and leave them alone, I have the capacity to run high mileage. So I've done everything from walk run approach to running low volume, to running high volume, to running like run fast to run slow. And I've done a ton of cross training just based on what fits into the schedule of my kids' days. So I'm maybe an atypical runner in that like I do not have a set time of day that I run. I'm just confident and committed to doing the run in the window of time on a given day that presents itself to be the least inconvenient for everyone. It's
Yeah.
probably the most inconvenient for me most of the time, because then it's the least inconvenient for other people that I have to be responsible for. But I think I've just committed to, over different seasons and different demands, toddlers and infants versus middle school versus now I have a high schooler, just being willing to be flexible. And again, like you said, redefine my definition of success. And it's not going to look like my neighbors or the countless people that I follow on Instagram that are either professional runners or sub elite runners or recreational runners or even mother runners who have a better or more expansive support network. We've always lived away from family. So a lot of my running was with multiple children in strollers and somebody on a scooter and somebody on a bike. And so it's not efficient running. But I was like, miles matter, minutes matter. It doesn't matter what they look like. Some of the times it's just getting the job done.
Yeah.
So I think being flexible with that definition goes a really long ways, especially when you parent motherhood or fatherhood into your fitness goals.
Totally, totally. I mean, I love that, the idea of being, having goals but being flexible with your plans. I think that's absolutely critical, both so in execution wise, getting it done, but also mentally, it's really important to be flexible and know things that aren't going to be according to plan. What do you ever plan your week and schedule in particular runs? Is it like I schedule in some runs that I know I can get in, and then outside of that, I have on my running clothes, or I have running clothes nearby so I know I can throw it on and get 30 minutes outside? Or like, how does that balance of plan versus actually no plan kind of look for you?
I feel like it's a both and. I do have a set plan for the week, but if I know, like, let's say for instance, tomorrow, I typically do my long runs on Fridays because my kids are in school, except for during the summertime.
Right.
But if I know, like, on this Friday, I will be driving from Wisconsin back to Ohio. So, like, my long run's not happening on a Friday. So then I preemptively, along with my coach, like, we will shift and adjust. So, like, I'm still going to get the volume, I'm still going to get the executed plan accomplished, but I have to be flexible about, like, I'm not always going to get to do this run on this day, but if I can just shift. I do spend all of my life in athleisure wear. So like, I actually like showered and like put on people clothes for this. And it's funny because just yesterday I came downstairs literally in blue jeans and like just a plain black tank top. And all of my kids were like, why do you look so nice? I was like, well, because I'm not going running.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Like you said, I think for most people, especially if they have multiple kids or just have like a super, super busy life, that is what is going to need to be done. It's like you plan what you can, But one of the things that I try to teach my people in my 10-week transformation class is to anticipate the like excuses or anticipate the challenges that you might have in your week, right? Because it's like, okay, I know that I'm getting ready to travel this weekend. I know that that's going to be a challenge, so I got to make sure that I plan accordingly and set myself up by getting my run in earlier in the week.
Yes. And I feel like I like that trickles down even to like my kids. I'm like, we're trying to set ourselves up and the people around us for success. And some of that looks like just controlling the controllable, have the things prepared that can be prepared to make the ease of execution. So there's fewer barriers to executing said objective or plan. And sometimes for me, like, and I can be an early morning person or I can be a late night person. It just depends on the day. And I am not opposed if I have to get on the treadmill at 11 p.m. because that was the window of time. Like I will get on the treadmill at 11 p.m. Like I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. the next morning. I'm going to sleep and get those 7.5, 8 hours of sleep. And then I'll kind of readjust. And so I think for me in parenthood, that became really critical because trying to plan, I learned really quickly with my first child, like trying to plan that like morning routine or like I'm going to work out before the kids get up. Like invariably, there's like a universal truth that like some kid's going to be up in the middle of the night. Somebody's going to be up in your bedroom before you needed them to be there, or somebody's going to get called into work and that plan's going to go out the window. So I feel like, again, being flexible with the goal, but also recognizing it requires you to be flexible in other areas of life too.
Yeah, totally. Just like honestly, practically speaking, you mentioned right before we hopped on how you have the 15, 13, 12, 10, and they're at that age where they're just not quite old enough to drive themselves, but they're old enough to be involved in a ton of activities and actual sporting stuff, actually traveling sporting events. Like talk to us just practically some of the things that you do in order to keep it organized with regards to planning, with regards to like communicating with your husband to make sure we know who's doing what when, delegating to other parents who's driving. Like what are some of the things that you guys do to get it done so that you can still have some time during the week for yourself and your own personal well-being?
Yeah, I was gonna say there is like that, come to Jesus meeting every week with my husband and I, like figuring out like who can drop off, who can pick up. We're pretty intentional about when we've moved a fair amount. And so looking for homes, schools, churches, activities, like the club sports that our kids, like we keep everything within a radius because we've
Mm,
always lived in a metroplex, right? And like you can easily waste time if you're driving from one end of the city to another. Like it might be 8 miles as the crow flies, but that's going to be 40 minutes in the car. So we do that strategically, try and like tell our kids like, hey, we want to support you and meet your energy and your goals where you're at, but here's the parameters. Like this is what's sustainable and executable for our family. So we do try to put limits on like how far are we traveling to play said sport, if it's a regular recurring practice.
right.
I think the other thing is you mentioned like just always having on your fitness clothes or bringing stuff with you. For both my husband and I, if we have to drop off a kid that's 20 minutes from home, like we're not going to go back home. Like we're going to grab our running shoes, we're going to grab a kettlebell, and just we're going to get our workout in while they're doing their soccer or they're doing their volleyball practice. And some of that is like I am unabashedly shameless about working out in places where maybe other people would be like, that's weird. Like I spent a lot of time when our kids were littler, like the reward at the end of the run was stopping at the playground and they got to play. Like you got to scoot there, you got to bike there, you got to stay in the stroller until we get to point A. And then while they're free playing on the playground, I'm like, you can do push-ups, you can do pull-ups, you can do free hangs, you can do squats, you can do hamstring stuff with a swing. So just like being willing to be super creative and
Yeah.
utilize that time. I think as my kids are older and I'm trying to embarrass them a tiny bit less, I mostly do a lot of like mobility work if I have that downtime and it's not worth going home. So like the stuff that tends to get pushed to the margin because I only have so much time to execute a run or a lift is, the mobility warm up, the prolonged stretching. So I'll sandwich that into, or even when I'm spectating at their
Yep.
sports and you're there for an all day tournament, I'm like, there's a lot you can do to benefit your body that
Totally.
is really